Hello degenerates and welcome back to another Smash Ultimate analysis video. This is actually a re-recording. We recorded this entire thing and it turned out my microphone wasn't set up properly, so it recorded nothing for 25 minutes. So, as you guessed by the title, this is actually going to be an analysis of the stages in Smash Ultimate, and I never did a video like this, except like pre-speculation before the game was released. But now that we have this here, now we have Small Battlefield added to the mix of things, I did want to do this video just because I have watched some stage discussion videos where they actually got some of the facts wrong about these stages. So I kind of wanted to share my overall thoughts about them, the things that you really need to know about these stages, and how Small Battlefield actually probably will affect the stage list going forward. So real quick, Small Battlefield was added at 8.1. And also not too long ago in patch 7, we also had the fix to Lilac Cruise. So the Lilac one's pretty significant because without that, there was kind of no reason to have Lilac, but now that that's fixed, Lilac's actually not a bad stage to play on. I personally don't like playing on it myself, but there's legitimately no reason not to use it now because the ledges aren't jank. At least in all of my experience of playing it after they fixed it, which the good thing is the website I have will actually show you what the fix was and why that fixed everything. So we'll take a look at that. But it's a very, very good counter pick stage now with a really nice layout to it. And honestly, if you really needed to, you could use that for starter. And I'll kind of go into detail why that is. And then Small Battlefield is a perfect mid-sized stage. I know a lot of people think it's actually a small stage because it's called Small Battlefield. But that is very misleading and wrong, and I will kind of show off why. So with that said, let's get into it. So these are all the stages that were added in, and pretty much no one's going to debate whether Small Battlefield should be a starter or not. The issue with adding Small Battlefield in is, as you can see, this is an even number. Whenever you're doing stages, you always want to have an odd amount of stages for the starters, so that way you can do the proper band. So whether it's going to be 1, 1, 2, 1, or if you're going to do 1, 2, 2, 1, you kind of need that. So then that way you can narrow it down to 2 stages at the very end. So that way when you do RPS and then you band your stages, it just works out perfectly. So there's kind of 2 trains of thoughts going into this. Either shrink down the stage list, or what you do is you have 7 starters. So you have all those and then you add in Small Battlefield and Lilac to the starters. Or you do a 5-1 where it's you might remove Pokemon Stadium or maybe Town and City and put one of them in the counter picks. And then you keep Lilac there too, and then you got Yoshi's and Kalos, with the option to remove any of these counter picks as well. I'll talk about this at the very end and why I personally like this stage list the best out of all of them, at least with the 5 starters and 4 counter picks, but I'll go more into detail on that later on. But for now, let's talk about the actual stages themselves. So if you guys have never heard about this stage before, it's a Tournameta.com stage comparison. This is a very important tool to be using whenever you are trying to analyze anything and just kind of theorize what stages are best for you to go to. Without looking at this, you're going to have a lot of misinformation and your eyes are going to deceive you on a lot of things, and I'll kind of point out why that is. Basically here, let's look at, so we're going to sort this by stage width, and the stage that we're going to look at is going to be Battlefield. So this is how you use this, and we'll actually do a zoom in on the display. So your outside boundary over here, this is your blast zone. So when your character touches this, they die. And the inner one here is the camera. So after they go outside of this box in the center, that's when the magnifying glass will appear. And then that's when that little box in the corner will show you where your character is. So that's what this is. The reason why this is important is this camera can deceive you on so many different things. So for example, if we compare this directly to Yoshi's Story now is the red line and Battlefield is the blue line. As you can see, the red line over here for Yoshi's Story, the camera itself is significantly smaller, and then also the blast zone itself is significantly smaller. But if you want to see something that's kind of interesting, is look at the platform. So the top platforms on Yoshi's Story are taller, but from top platform to the top camera is a significantly smaller distance than it is on Battlefield. As you can see, the inner camera of Yoshi's Story, a lot smaller. The platforms are a lot taller. But because of that, you sort of have a wider gap between the camera's boundaries and then the top's blast zone boundaries. So basically, when you hit this camera, like there's not as much distance between going through this and then when you hit the blast zone as it is compared on Battlefield. So while you will hit this top area more, just because you hit somebody outside into the magnifying zone, does not mean that they're closer to death than they would be on Battlefield. It's just like kind of a weird distinction that's over there, and you'll only really understand this if you look at the data itself. Another one that highlights this a little bit better is if we compare Battlefield and FD, or is it Town and City as the lower one? Okay, yeah, we'll do Town and City instead. So the main thing that I want to point out here is the bottom blast zone. So as you can see, Lilat and Town and City have basically the same bottom blast zone. However, the camera is significantly different. As you know, if you pretty much go right underneath the stage on Lilat Cruise, you're pretty much going to be inside the magnifying glass just because the camera cuts off here. You can't see this entire space. However, if you're on Town and City, the camera cuts off really, really far below, but the thing is the distance between the edge of the camera and the blast zone is really, really, really short. And with the blue line there being Town and City, you can see it's actually a slightly shorter blast zone than it is on Lilat. And that can lead to a lot of deceiving kills that normally wouldn't kill you otherwise. So a big example I can point to right now is if you were playing King K. Rool. So if you're playing King K. Rool, you use up air to stall. So generally speaking, on a lot of stages, if you are in the camera and you decide to do an up air here, you'll fall to like about here, and you should still be able to live an up B back. However, if you do an up air like right around here as King K. Rool, when you hit that up B, you're probably going to hit the bottom blast zone just because of the way that stage is. So it's like, while you might be used to being able to do it within the camera's boundaries most of the time, because of the way Town and City is and their camera, you actually will not be able to do that. You will just hit the bottom blast zone and die for doing it that low. But it's not because, you know, the stage itself would be smaller than Battlefield is. It's just because of the way that the camera deceives you on Town and City compared to Lilat, and what you're normally used to compared to a lot of other stages. So, you know, without like fully dissecting things like that, it's information like this that's going to like easily pass you by whenever you're looking at this. So with that said, I want to talk about using this website a little bit more. So in this top corner over here, there's one thing that you really want to use, and you want to check this box, which is the stats box. So you can choose how you want to sort it. In this case, I'm actually sorting it by stage width. What stage width means is just the bottom stage itself and how long it takes to run across. So actually the main inspiration behind this is I was watching one, I believe it was Left of the Stage video, and one thing that he mentioned was that he said that Yoshi's Story's stage is actually really big to go across, and that's actually completely false. This is actually the smallest stage to walk around, as well as the smallest blast zones out of the entire legal stages that we do have. So for example, like our medium-sized stages are all 160, and you can see like FD like just kind of completely dwarfs it on the edge. It's just little ledges there could just make it feel a little bit weird when you're playing on it. And also with the platforms being so far apart, it might feel a little bit larger than it is, but it's actually the most small and condensed stage that we do have. So this is how we're going to break down the stage list, is we're actually going to go by the stage width, and then we're going to kind of break down each one of these stages into a little bit more nuanced categories. So we'll be starting off with the small stages, which is going to be Yoshi's Story and Smashville. So as you can see, you know, Smashville, generally considered to be one of our smallest stages. People are used to dying pretty early on there. However, you can see that Smashville has a pretty normal ceiling size, or if you compare it to Yoshi's Story, it's actually a lot smaller over here. The other thing that you can do it is if we compare the top blast zones. Smashville and Yoshi Story are kind of the closest together, but like Yoshi Story has like the same as like Stadium, Battlefield, and actually pretty much the same top blast zone as all the rest of the stages that are below it. The ones that have the higher ceiling are going to be Smashville, Town and City, Battlefield, and Kalos. So that's kind of important to know. And the other thing too is doing a direct comparison with Yoshi Story and just regular Battlefield. Obviously, not only are the blast zones on Battlefield a lot taller, but the platforms on Battlefield are shorter pretty significantly right there, as you can see. So that means if you get hit off the top here, you're going to die way earlier and even on the side platforms than you would on Battlefield. So that's important to know. So that kind of lends itself to the counterpick stage just very, very nicely. It's basically our version of WarioWare that we have. And then Smashville basically has a really nice regular stage layout here. You have one platform that you interact with a lot. But the other thing that it has is the horizontal blast zones here. So if you compare horizontal ones, it's in like a very, very nice like medium range over here. And then also you do have like the taller ceiling over here. So stage-wise, if you're just looking at it in terms of like the width that we have, this is among the smallest that we have. However, like horizontally and vertically, it's actually a little bit larger. So it kind of puts itself in like a really weird category where it's like you're always fighting close quarters, but the distance that you're traveling to the blast zones is kind of different. As I mentioned, tall ceiling compared to most of the standard stages by like about 10 units. And then horizontally, it's basically going to be this, it's right down the middle. Like even Pokemon Stadium 2 is shorter, and then Lilat and Town are shorter. So Yoshi Story and Smashville, they're basically in the same exact category in terms of horizontal blast zones over there. So that's easy enough to identify. So next up on the stage width category, we're not going to talk about Yoshi's Island because most places have that one banned. So I don't think that one's like really too worth talking about. We'll talk about the main stage that was added, Small Battlefield, and then just to compare like all the medium-sized stages, we're going to throw FD on there, Kalos, and Lilac. So one thing that's universal across all of them is they all have a stage length of 160. So if they tell you that the stage itself is bigger in terms of just like the actual base platform, they're completely lying to you if they say any of these are different. They all have like the exact same 160. The Battlefield and Small Battlefield are 0.975. It's not really much of a difference. The main area that they're different is in terms of their blast zones that they have. So the first ones we're going to compare directly is Small Battlefield with Battlefield. So Small Battlefield, if you look here, we're going to zoom in again. You're going to notice that there's a little like red dot on the side here, and then there's a blue dot on the side there. So the platforms themselves are the same exact length. However, where they're placed is slightly different. On Small Battlefield, which is the red, there's more inwards, and on regular Battlefield, they're a little bit more outwards. While it does seem like a small difference, by them being a little bit more inwards, you're forced to interact with them a lot more, and it just makes it a little bit easier to combo from one platform to the other one as well. So it kind of like the analysis like Leffen gave of it, where it's like you're kind of interacting with the platforms nonstop in neutral because of where they're located and how they're placed. At least if you're comparing it to Pokemon Stadium, we'll bring it up here. You pretty much can't ignore these because like on Stadium, the stage itself is a lot bigger, so the platforms are also smaller too. So with that and not everybody being able to full hop to these, you're just not interacting with them nearly as much as you are on say like a Smashville or a Small Battlefield. You're just forced to engage with these at pretty much at all points. So it makes the stage itself play a lot differently compared to Stadium, as well as since the stage is smaller than the Stadium, you're just not able to camp as much as well just because you don't have as much space to run away with as well. So that kind of lends itself a lot to really differentiating itself from Pokemon Stadium, and that's the main reason why it really needs to be considered to be played. Like, no question, there's no question that this stage should be played. It's kind of foolish not to use it. The other thing too that I want to mention is the actual outer blast zones are the same exact size blast zones as they are on FD. The only difference between the two is the camera. So FD's is a little bit wider, where Small Battlefields is deeper on the bottom. But you can see the stage is the exact same shape. That does not even change. It just adds the platforms there, but horizontals, top and bottom blast zones, those are all the exact same as FD. So if you're picking Small Battlefield, you're picking FD with some platforms on it. That's the best way to think about that stage. And then of course Battlefield, this is your generic big stage that you have. The only other one that's kind of close to that is Kalos. So since we're on our large stage list, there's kind of some interesting tidbits I want to mention. So on Battlefield, the bottom blast zones are a lot deeper, so that can lend yourself to a lot more survivability on this stage. However, on Kalos, you do also have the option to wall jump here, so that can kind of lend itself for more survivability on there too. The other thing too is the camera on Kalos is smaller too, so your travel between going here and to the bottom blast zone and the side blast zones can seem like a little bit longer than it is on Battlefield, so that's the other reason why you might feel like you're living longer. Top blast zone wise, you're actually living the same exact wise if you're going vertically, just because it is the same exact height. There's no difference there. But if you're launching at an angle, because Kalos is slightly wider than Battlefield, you will live a little bit longer because the corner is pushed out further. So that is important to know, but spikes will kill earlier on this stage, and then like edge guarding, you don't nearly have to go as deep to kill them off the bottom too, or just off the sides with that. So that kind of gives it some weird niches. Again, the stage itself is not any bigger than Battlefield is. It's not any bigger than Final Destination. They're all basically 160 units across, and that's shown right here in the statistics. So if somebody says that the base stage itself is bigger, they're lying to you. They haven't looked up the info. The only thing that's true is that the side blast zones are a little bit bigger, but the bottom ones are shorter, and its ceiling is not any taller than it is with Battlefield. And just kind of show that off again, you'll see they're both at the top there with 192 units. We'll go back to stage one. Lastly, we're going to talk about Lilac Cruise. So Lilac is like actually one of the smallest stages that we have. Basically the only thing that it's really compared to is like blast zone wise is Yoshi's Story. So Yoshi's Story, as you can see here, is even a little bit smaller than Lilac, just because the horizontals are shorter, and then also the bottom blast zones are shorter. But again, the camera on Lilac is a lot smaller, and it actually is a lot taller compared to Yoshi's. So Lilac, actually, if you are able to take somebody to the top over here, they will die a little bit earlier in the magnifying glass than compared to Yoshi's, because you hit the magnifying glass a lot earlier in Yoshi's. But, you know, regardless, same vertical kill potential, and the horizontal kill potential is a little bit easier on Yoshi's. So with that, killing horizontally is a little bit easier on Yoshi's as well. The other thing too about Lilac, just put on Small Battlefield. I did say I wanted to talk about the stage fix that they did. So the main thing that they changed here is just with this ledge. What they did was they actually like made it more shallow, so that way you wouldn't just like get these weird interactions where your body just clips through it. And they made the wall over here larger, so that way your model collided more with it, and that just allows for a lot more consistency to grab the ledge. And all my time playing the new Lilac, I've not had any issues where I've just gone through the stage or just completely missed the ledge. This fix has made this a perfectly normal stage to play on, with just like some weirdness with like the slants. So if you're not used to playing on slants, it's weird, but like it's a lot better than like something like Yoshi's Island, where like Yoshi's Island you have the tidbits here, you have this, and that's at an angle, that's at another angle, and like Yoshi's Island, like I hate playing on that stage. So with Lilac, you just have like a really nice consistent way that it's done. So it's like you just have the slants on the edge, kind of like Yoshi's Story, like right there. And then you do have like these weird little divots here that can cause some issues with like certain minute interactions, but overall it's pretty normal. The platform layout's really nice on it too. So with all that being said, it's now a good stage to play on, and it serves its purpose as a small counter pick stage, so you can just kill earlier on it. And not to mention there's also like a lot of really nice combos that go horizontally too. So it just has a really nice niche in the entirety of the whole stage ecosystem, And I honestly wouldn't want to see it go unless like it means like if I have to choose between this and small battlefield, no small battlefield for sure. Last up, we're going to be talking about our large stages. So this is going to be Town and City and Pokemon Stadium 2. So as you can see, these are the widest stages. Town City coming in at 165 and Pokemon Stadium 2 coming in at a gigantic 187. If you actually compare this to the regular Pokemon Stadium, it's basically 11 units shorter as well. So the Pokemon Stadium 2 is by and large the largest stage that we do have. Like you could actually see it. Like Town City small, regulars, Pokemon Stadium 1 is medium, and then 2 is large. So because of that, like a lot of characters are able to camp out on Stadium 2 really, really nicely and just like play keep away. And then the other thing that's kind of weird is because of the way the horizontal blast zones are, you actually will die significantly earlier on Town and City than you would on Stadium as well. To kind of show this off, we're going to show off horizontal blast zones. So out of all the legal stages that we have, Town and City is actually the smallest stage horizontally, but it's the second largest one that we have in terms of the base stage. So what this means is if you have a really good back throw, or you can kill at a very, very shallow angle, you can kill off the sides on Town and City super, super, super easily. So in that sense, it actually works really good if your character has those properties. Instead of like, you know, killing late, you're killing mad early. So that's a really important thing to know about Town City. Where Pokemon Stadium 2, compared to the rest of them, it is actually smaller. So like Smashville is like larger by 3 units, FD is larger by 4, Battlefield is larger by 4 as well, and then Kalos is larger by 9. So Kalos, you actually do have like the largest like horizontal ones, but like with that being said, because like the stage of Pokemon Stadium is so wide out there, you're able to hit those horizontal blast zones a lot easier too. So just kind of to put this in perspective, let's put Smashville here. And you can notice that actually. Okay, yeah. So what it's talking about here is just from turns from getting to the ledge to the blast zone. This distance from here to the horizontal blast zone is 4 units smaller than it is from here to the horizontal blast zone over there. Yeah. So that's very important to know. So while it is technically a bigger blast zone and all that stuff, it is still a lot smaller. Not to mention, if we look at vertical heights on this, I do believe it ties up with a lot of different stages. Like Stadium ties with Yoshi's Story, it ties with Small Battlefield, FD, and then Lilat as well. So it is in the bottom part of the upper ceilings as well. So nothing too drastic there. But, you know, comparing it to Small Battlefield, you do have those differences there. So Small Battlefield and Pokemon Stadium from the ledge to the edge are actually are the exact same there. It's just that you have a lot less stage to work with on Small Battlefield, as you can see here. You don't have to deal with all that. And you can also recover below Small Battlefield as well. And with these platforms being lower, you are able to interact with these a lot more, and a lot more characters are able to do things with these. So that does add quite a bit to the way that they play. Town and City, real quick. Let's talk about that. So I mentioned, from the edge to the horizontal blast zone is actually like the smallest out of all the stages. So you can kill Matt early there, but killing off the top is a bit of a different story. Killing off the top, Town and City basically ties with all the tallest ones, with Battlefield and Kalos just being 2 units taller than that. So it does like lead to a lot more like diagonal kills, killing a lot later. So that's one thing that it has going for it. So if you want to survive vertically, Town City is not a bad one to go to. And if you want a lot of stage to play with to just kind of camp around, it's good for going for that. But like, however, killing off the side, if you're really worried about fighting a character that like is really good at killing you with shallow angles, probably not the stage to go to. However, if you're playing like a character that has like no horizontal recovery, this isn't a bad stage to go to, just because like if you hit the blast zones, you probably weren't going to be able to recover in the first place. So in that perspective, it's not too bad. But always do keep in mind, these bottom blast zones here are super, super, super deceiving on Town and City. Like you do have more stage here than you would like on Smashville, as it shows. Like Smashville's is a little bit shorter, but the way the camera works, like Smashville's camera ends here, but Town and City's camera ends here. So the distance between here and here compared to, I'll show this again. So the distance between the red to red is a lot bigger than from the blue to blue. So you will be deceived a lot earlier on Town and City and Smashville. On Town and City compared to basically every other stage. So remember, if you do like K-Roll's up air and you're in the camera and you die on Kalos, the reason why you died on there versus not on Smashville is because when you up air here as K-Roll, you'll end up like around here, where if you up here as K-Roll, you're going to end up in the blast zone. So that's always a very important distinction to remember with the camera and when you're judging your survivability. If you always die in a lot of instances where you felt like, hey, I lived like that on a different stage, check where the camera's placed and that'll normally answer your question there. So with that said, that basically covers everything. So just to briefly touch upon why I didn't talk about the other stages, Unova, basically banned everywhere. Not too many people really want to play on it. And when you look at it, it's not hard to see why. Like, it's the weirdest thing on the sides, and it does mess up a lot of teleport recoveries, but truth be told, you could get used to it. And just like platform-wise, when you compare it to Stadium, it's actually even taller than Stadium's platforms, so not everybody can even use those. So if you compare it to like a small Battlefield, you can see it's significantly lower than that. So not really a reason to use Unova. And then Yoshi's Island Brawl. Again, this stage is very jank. No one really likes playing on this stage just because of like the way the ledges are and all that, and the stage itself, the way it's slanted. So honestly, not really a reason to bring that into the discussion. Okay, so let's talk about the actual stage lists themselves. So now that we've kind of gone into all of them, let's talk about like the two main schools of thoughts that you can go with. So the 7 starter stage list, the main reason why some people might want to go with this is if you don't want to get rid of any of the existing starters and you want to add small battlefield, this is the only real way that you can do this. Well, Lilac definitely falls more under counterpick territory with just the way that the stage is laid out. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with like the stage size itself and the blast zones. It provides itself to be a very good starter for a small stage. So that's the reason why it's kind of fine being there. You kind of have this one and Smashville being your small stages. Then you have FD, Small Battlefield, and Town just kind of being like your more medium-sized stages. But honestly, I'd probably say just more FD and Small Battlefield. And then you would have Pokemon Stadium, Town and City, and Battlefield being like your large stages. But of course, depending on how your character kills kind of determines if Town and City or Pokemon Stadium count in that category, just because of the top blast zones and the horizontal blast zones. And of course, counterpicks, you'll have Kalos and Yoshi Story. Kalos is still the largest blast zone-wise out of the entirety of all the stages. So that's the reason why that one's a counterpick. And Yoshi Story, as I've showed, is the smallest blast zone-wise, and it has the tallest platforms too. So you just die mad early on that stage, and that it makes it perfect as like that WarioWare style counterpick stage. So for me personally, the stage list that I would like to run at the moment is the one where we switch Pokemon Stadium to the counterpicks, and we just replace it with Small Battlefield. So with this stage list, you have Small Battlefield, you have Smashville to be your one small stage that you have. Small Battlefield and Final Destination are your medium-sized stages, and then you have Town and City and Battlefield as your large ones. But then again, as we did look at the blast zones, Town and City horizontally kind of doesn't meet that criteria. It's just that the stage itself is pretty big to play on, so it's kind of weird. So depending on how your character kills will determine whether Town and City would be considered a small or large stage for you. But of course, the base of it is big, so if that's the only thing you're concerned about, that would be a big stage. However, if you look at Battlefield Small and Final Destination, those are all the same size, where Smashville is small. So you kind of have a really nice balance of like 3 medium-sized stages and then like 1 small and 1 big, and I think that's perfect for a starter list. And then for counter picks, I think this works out really well because Pokemon Stadium is a gigantic stage. It's the largest stage that you can play on terms of the actual stage itself. So that's the reason why like projectile characters kind of have a lot easier of a time, and just more campy characters are a lot easier running around, and especially Sonic. Sonic can run all around you on that stage for like days if he really wants to, just because of how big it is. Kalos is your other big stage, and then you have Lilat and Yoshi's being your two small ones. Like the blast zones themselves are just the smallest out of all of legal stages, so it's like you can kill horizontally early, and then like, you know, of course they have like similar ceilings as well, and then even like shorter bottom blast zones too. So it's like you have your two like extra small stages there as counterpicks, and then you have your two large stages in like some like other capacity as a way to counterpick. And I think this would just be a really healthy way to do it. So that way your starters, you know, you're still just doing the 1 to 1. So that way the way that you ban your starters hasn't changed, and then your counter picks are added, and you just kind of change the way that you do your bans. So it's like, you know, maybe you get like 3 bans or something like that. Or if you want to do like 4 or something like that, that could be something. But I think like 3 bans would probably be fine. And then from there, you know, you just have like a very, very healthy selection of stages without really much jank. And like the only two that could possibly really cause jank would be like Story and Lilat. But other than that, like everything else is like a completely normal stage with, you know, you can get Pineapple with Pokemon Stadium. That's really about it. So yeah, that's kind of what I would like to see from the overall stage list. So hopefully I answered all your questions about the stages themselves. If you want me to go a little bit more in depth about the stages, I definitely wouldn't mind doing that. And of course, you know, I do plan on doing more stage guides for Duck Hunt, so I can just like cover more topics there. So definitely look forward to that in the future. I'll definitely be doing stage guides for King K. Rool as well. So yeah, if you want to find the links for these websites, I'm definitely going to post the stage analyzer in the description, and I'm also going to post this stage list maker as well. So if you're interested in making your own and like kind of asking like opinions around, it's a very easy way to do it, and they do have like every stage available on there if you even want to make like even weirder rule sets for yourself. So with that being said, yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something new about the stages that you may not have known before. I hope you're a little bit more informed on the whole like stage list discussion there in terms of just like striking and banning and all that stuff, and why they aren't going completely crazy. I guess one thing I should address before is in terms of the hazard argument. The reason why we're never going to do hazards is because switching between hazards on and off is way too much of a hassle. If you could toggle it while you're selecting the stage, it wouldn't be an issue, but because you have to do that, it makes it a little bit too difficult. And you know, while Fountain Dreams might be kind of cool to do that, just the overall layout of it doesn't really change it enough. I mean, of course, you know, you do have the platforms moving up and down, which leads to some interesting interactions. That's kind of about it. Like, it's not going to really serve any different purpose compared to Battlefield, just because like the blast zones themselves are like very, very similar. And of course, some people are like, oh, I like moving platforms in Town and City and Smashville. With those, it just kind of leads to more degenerate and lame gameplay, just because you can camp a lot more on there. So honestly, you would hate that to happen more than anything. It's just that sometimes it can lead to really early jank kills on both Town and City and Smashville, and that's really about it. Like overall, it's just like there's not really a reason to do it just for those 2 stages. And like, well, technically you could say Fountain of Dreams as well, but like even then, that one really wouldn't benefit too much from it. Of course, the other one you could throw in there is Dreamland, but you know, we already have enough tri-platform stages. Having just Yoshi Story and Battlefield is just fine enough. You really don't need to add another one to the mix, and they don't really add enough to the Blossom variety to really make them justified to put in as well. So yeah, I'm against adding hazards in just because it adds just a lot more of a headache in there, and like losing like Pokemon Stadium and losing Kalos, I don't really think is worth doing just for that. And you actually would lose Lilat too, because that has to tilt to that point. So regardless, it's just like, I think the hazardless versions of all these stages are just significantly better, and you just have a lot more stages of playlist when you turn hazards off, so there's no reason to even discuss that. Yeah, so with that said, you know, let me know down in the comments below, what is your ideal stage list? Would you only have 5? Do you like counterpicks? Do you hate them? Do you agree with my stage list? Do you agree with the 7 or the 5? Let me know in the comments below. What other stages would you like to see played? Personally, I don't really think there's any other ones that are worth considering for a variety of reasons, but I wouldn't mind doing a video on that if you guys are more interested in learning my thoughts on that. But you know, that's definitely a whole other discussion because there's a lot of stages to go through. Probably only go through the ones that could realistically happen. And then, yeah, don't forget, check out that ultimate stage list analyzer if you really need to learn more about the legal stages. forget we also have the Stageless Maker as well, which could be a fun tool to play around with. And tomorrow I'm going to be making my video on CEO Dreamland, that Smash Stories vlog, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully you look forward to that. That's honestly like just one of my all-time favorite times. I can't wait to talk about it and share it more with you guys. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And until then, take care of yourselves until the next one.